As a born and raised Hoosier, the Sauce Gardner trade had me feeling like,
yes! 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 Yes!
Oh, those
yes!
are the new ones?
Yes! 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 Yes!
Colts GM Chris Ballard made one of the biggest NFL trade deadline moves in recent memory, sending 2 first-round picks and wide receiver A.D. Mitchell to the New York Jets to acquire 2-time first-team All-Pro corner Ahmad Sauce Gardner. The move sent shockwaves across the AFC, signaling that the Colts are serious about being deep playoff contenders for 2025 and beyond. Beyond just the move itself, adding Sauce Gardner is exactly what defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo was missing on his side of the ball. Heading into Week 10, the Colts are 11th in defensive DVOA and are top 10 in the NFL with a passer rating allowed of just 87.7. Despite all the success for the Colts defense, one of the key shortcomings on this unit has been a lack of cornerback depth. Charvarius Ward is on injured reserve after suffering a concussion in pregame warmups, and Xavier Howard abruptly retired earlier this season. Not only does Gardner immediately bolster Indy's secondary, but it also allows Lou Anarumo to play his corners more aggressively and start being more aggressive with his defense as a whole. That's something that's specifically been missing from the Colts defense this year. According to Cody Alexander with Match Quarters, the Colts have ranked below average in both blitzes and simulated pressures this season, making them far too conservative due to their worries of exposing inexperienced corners like Jonathan Edwards and Mekhi Blackman. And that's very unlike a Lou Anarumo defense. For fans that had watched him during his time as defensive coordinator with the Bengals, Cincinnati was throwing all kinds of stuff at opposing quarterbacks to keep them constantly guessing and not feel settled at any point in a game. By adding Gardner to the mix, the Colts have an opportunity to unlock so much more of Lou Anarumo's scheme. So let's dive into one of Sauce's earlier games this season against the Pittsburgh Steelers to give you a better feel of just what kind of corner the Colts have acquired in today's episode of Best Available. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. Make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube. You can also follow us on socials at BestAvailableYT. And if you are considering a way to support the channel, consider becoming a member. I'll leave details to that in the episode description. But I know why you're here. It's to talk about Sauce Gardner. Let's go ahead and dive into that film. Honestly, of any NFL GM to acquire Sauce Gardner, it was always going to be Chris Ballard. This guy that is just absolutely obsessed with size and length at the cornerback position. And he got a guy that's 6'2" with 33.5-inch arms and a 79.5-inch wingspan. Like, this guy is not only the perfect scheme fit for Lou Anarumo, but a true dream come true for Chris Ballard. And we'll see a lot of what he can do. And I wanted to show the Steelers game specifically because, you know, A, it's a game he played well in, but also B, I think it's something that the Colts lacked was a guy that can really line up against like an alpha, big-bodied wide receiver. For Colts fans, I know you remember before Xavier Howard retired, just how much he got picked on against Puka Nacua. Gardner's one of these guys that can just erase a player from a game. So we have Gardner on DK at the top of the screen. What I love here, he is in press alignment. He is going to try and jam DK, but what I love is just the patience here at the top of the screen. Let's fast forward a little bit. It's just the patience to, you know, we're getting in that release. His eyes are still forward. He is not committing his hips, his feet, or his hands yet. He is waiting for DK to commit before he makes a decision. And Gardner obviously has the length to do this, but he also has that fluidity and speed where he can afford to be patient. Like, hey, maybe he gets beat initially, but because he's so long and is able to jam right there, you can see him make contact. He is immediately disrupting this route from DK. I mean, the play is going on. Rodgers is still like firmly at the top of his drop, it looks like. And DK's barely, you know, made any progress in his route. It's just that's the kind of disruptive weapon that Sauce is, and then he can just ride the hip pocket on that slant the whole way. Completion on the other end of the field, that's just going to happen with playing defense. But I thought this play was important to show just because you can see that patience. Just we're going to run it in full as you watch Gardner at the top of the screen. Patience, strike, and then just stay in that hip pocket. It's something he can do against even the biggest receivers. Like DK is a unicorn in terms of size and explosiveness. And then I like that at the end. You see here just a little shoving match at the end. Just early on, just let him know, like, hey, I'm going to be here all day. It's going to be a long day for you. Love stuff like that. Gardner is wired the right way with the tools to be, a legit disruptive press man corner. I know Lou also likes to run a lot of zone, but, I don't think the Colts possessed a guy like Gardner that can press like this. We talked about that fluidity with Gardner, someone that can really, not sacrifice speed when changing directions, even from awkward angles. So we're just going to have this bail technique, right? He's opening up his hips to gain depth, keep an eye on the quarterback so that he can break down if he sees anything from that technique. What I appreciate here is we're just going to run almost like a glance or a post from DK, and I want you to watch Gardner's ability to react to that and break down despite running from that bail technique. That quick reaction and then closing speed to close the distance on that route is just a special trait for him. It's easier said than done. I've been watching a lot of corner prospects lately, and I've watched a few where they're in that bail technique, hips, back to the sideline, just gaining that depth. And when they read, in breaking route or a comeback or a curl, it takes them, 2, 3, 4 steps. And all of a sudden, they've taken up 3 more yards that they need to get to just go from 0 and start going downhill. Gardner just has that uncanny ability to quickly close that speed with little effort. DK might have been the primary read here. No one's open. Rodgers just tries to throw it away. We've got Gardner on DK Metcalf again at the top of the screen. He's in press alignment. We're going to see here, he's staying patient with it. Getting a little beat on the whip route, not to be totally unexpected. They've been running a lot of drags in this game over the course of the game. They've been running a lot of slants, a lot of in-breaking stuff. So Gardner, understandably, is a little excited to jump that. His recovery on the whip route is impressive enough, but I want you to try and pay attention closely to this. Let me try and zoom in on this for you guys as much as I can. I wish I could go in slow-mo, but the way I have this set up, it's kind of hard. It's that recovery, but if you notice where his eyes are not on Metcalf. They are on that ball. And then he's just going to attack that football to force the PBU. And this has become, a trend, at least I've noticed this year around the league. Cornerbacks are getting so good at attacking that football instead of the man at the catch point. And the reason you want to do that is because if the guy is not secured, if the receiver has not secured the catch, you can force so many pass breakups that way. The issue is it's kind of high risk, right? If you whiff and you're still in bounds and you're not going for the ball carrier, it can be an explosive play. But guys are getting so good at this and they have such ridiculous hand-eye coordination. We are seeing a ton of really difficult pass breakups, and I think this is definitely one of those. The reaction time, he does get bit a little on that inside move on the whip route, but recovers well enough, to break back outside and then attack that football. That's the most important part at the end of this. The ability to punch out that football before Metcalf has secured it. Like, that's what all pro corners do, is they're able to come away with pass breakups, even when they're initially beat. This is one of those, we talked earlier in this video about patience from press alignment. We've got Sauce here at the bottom of the screen. And it's because he can get away with it, even if he loses leverage. And we're going to see that right here on this play. DK Metcalf's going to get a clean inside release here, right? And he is so explosive and fast and bigger than Sauce. Against most corners, he probably is able to effectively separate vertically. But Gardner's length and speed and just not being overly grabby and being comfortable with that disadvantageous position is in that hip pocket the whole way vertically. And it's a great throw by Rodgers to the other receiver. I believe that's Calvin Austin. But this is just one of those examples of Gardner has no panic in his game just because he's losing leverage in this situation. He's more than comfortable riding that hip pocket all the way up the field, knowing that he has the length, even if this gets thrown inside or over the safety, because this safety is getting lateral. If we're going over the top here and Gardner's in that hip pocket, he has such long arms and good body control that he can make a play on that ball still. It's one of those traits, like, even a corner that's playing this correctly that doesn't have the length that Sauce has is probably in trouble here. But, it's just all of those traits combined with just how, he's not panicking in this situation makes life a lot easier for a cornerback. We have Sauce right here. I just want you to know, don't expect Sauce to be a true game changer in the run game or anything. I know there's a few corners that can. That tends to be the exception more than the rule. So we've got Gardner being forced to almost alley fill here. We've got him right here. He is 6'2", but he is still pretty dang wiry. He takes some punishment here. What I really appreciate, like, he's not going to be one of these, again, run stuffing, hit stick kind of corners, but to absorb this kind of hit from Jalen Warren, who is a, notoriously not afraid running back, especially going head on head with a corner, the ability to at least slow him down and then, like, wrestle him to the ground is admirable. Like, I'm not saying this is an incredible play, but for a guy that, is supposed to be one of these superstar corners, has every excuse in the world to not, be the best against the run. I at least appreciate the effort to take that punishment on this tackle attempt, stay with it, slow him down enough for teammates to get there while also working to just wrap him to the ground. I at least appreciate that. Number one rule I've been taught for cornerback play on an outside release from press alignment like this at the top of the screen. The sideline is your friend. Naturally, you want to just push wide receivers that are releasing outside to that sideline. I'm not saying physically push, but there are ways to get him to drift that way. You put your hip on his hip and just let momentum do its work. And I think Gardner does a great job of that on this outside release. He jams him. He keeps that arm going for a couple of yards, lets go to not, draw an illegal contact or holding penalty. And then he stays on that hip pocket, uses his momentum. He's not being overly grabby. He's keeping his eyes on, but just letting Metcalf drift toward that sideline. And why are we doing that? Let me get to a good stopping point here. If we're giving him a more free release, like let's say this way, right? We have all of this space to the sideline where a quarterback like Rodgers, who's pinpoint on these balls, he has a little more margin for error down the sideline. But if we're pushing here, look at how little room we have. This throw has to be, more than perfect. That's why corners are taught. The sideline is your friend on outside releases. We want to use that sideline as leverage. We want to stack on top of the receiver. We want to eliminate the possibility for a completion as much by just eliminating this space between the receiver and the sideline as much as possible. And you can do that in so many legal ways without pushing him or holding him or anything like that. And the one thing I've noticed in this game, with as much as DK attacks vertically, Gardner is not afraid at all about being, hands-free, playing it cleanly, and utilizing all of his natural skills to make sure that Metcalf is covered. Head fakes and stuff are not going to get Gardner. We have him here in the slot, pre-snap motion. He's just not phased by, inside release, looking vertically, snap his head. Gardner's in the hip pocket, in the slot this whole way. What's funny is, frankly, I don't think man is Gardner's best trait, but against a receiver like Metcalf, it was clear the game plan was, we're just going to trust him on Metcalf wherever he's lined up and just try to eliminate him from this game. And frankly, outside of some, mesh drag routes where they were trying to run picks at Gardner, I mean, he was great the whole day as far as, preventing Metcalf from going off against him. Here's some of that zone stuff we've been waiting for. This is going to turn into cover two. I know it doesn't look like it right now because we only have this one high safety on this hash. But you're going to notice it as this play quickly develops. Now that we've snapped the ball, this guy's going to immediately gain as much depth as possible. Now we're starting to see, right, that too high shell. Too high. He's trying to get here, cover here. And, it's a pretty well disguised coverage because, you're not really sure what you're seeing here. Maybe it's a cover 6 or 9 based on, if this guy was playing, and then you have two deep defenders. I appreciate the pre-snap look they gave to make this a little confusing, but because this is cover 2 principles, the outside corner has the flat, and you can see he's got that flat assignment based on his alignment and where his eyes are. He's looking into that backfield. I appreciate he's looking at that flat, and then he breaks quickly on this throw. It's a really nice job to, help corral this tight end. Yes, it's a completion, but like where his eyes are at, he's not paying too much attention to the wide receiver that he's theoretically lined up on. He is just solely worried about this part of the field. And I think he does a nice job reading that. And it's one of those things with Lou Anarumo, obviously aggressive, disguises all kinds of stuff, likes to play zone. I think this is where some stuff where Gardner can be really dangerous, especially on some of these exotic, disguised looks like this pre-snap where, again, this is supposed to be cover 2. It just does not look like it before the snap. Starting bottom of the screen with Gardner, he's going to start in press alignment, but as the ball's about to be snapped, he's, drifting off. And then it's just this ability, quick in-breaking route, his recovery, and then the length to attack this football. He can trigger downhill quickly, and then I think he's so much longer than quarterbacks are prepared for. This should be such an easy completion. This is a lot of space in the NFL. And, Rodgers has the arm. It's Metcalf. He's a big bodied guy. It's just Gardner is just one of these special, special kinds of athletes that can break down on this and utilize that length and just time up the catch point so well, especially after drifting off. Like that trigger from back pedal to downhill. It looks a little funky and unconventional. Let me try and pause it at the step. Like he looks a little out of control here with that, step two trigger, but it doesn't matter. Like he's so explosive downhill and is so damn long. He's able to make, an awfully nice pass breakup. A lot of stuff to be excited about with Sauce Gardner. I mean, this is a two-time recent All-Pro, first-team All-Pro, and he's still just the best football feels like it's ahead of him. I know it's been, quote-unquote, a down year this year for him with the Jets, but I think that's just kind of the product of playing on a winless team. I think this is going to transform the way the Colts play defensive football. I mean, Kenny Moore is an outstanding slot. When you get Charvarius Ward back, combined with the safety help they have over the top, Leatu Latu's blossoming into a legitimate pass rusher. You've got Buckner and Grover Stewart. You got Zaire Franklin at linebacker. Like, there's so many pieces to this defense now, along with an offense that's firing on all cylinders. This feels like a complete football team. Biggest question is Daniel Jones. What version do they get of him come playoff time? I know we've had a lot of these really inspirational second acts of quarterback along with Sam Darnold last year, but that's really going to be what determines the success for the Colts this season. But I personally can't wait for it. I mean, this was not supposed to be an exciting year for the Colts, and now here they are, one of the best teams in the AFC, just acquiring, one of the top cornerbacks in football. So let me know in the comments what you think about the Sauce Gardner trade, what you think about the Colts' chances for the rest of the season, and whether or not you did like the trade. But we'll be back next week following a great slate of college and NFL games this weekend. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you later.